Makena and Adisa looked like the perfect couple. They had good jobs, a beautiful house in Nairobi, and everyone thought they were truly happy. But behind closed doors, something felt wrong. Adisa couldn't let go of his mother, Mama Halima, who died just 2 months after their wedding. Makena didn't know her well, but the few moments they shared were painful. Mama Halima always gave her cold stares and silent judgment. After the funeral, Adisa brought home a wooden urn holding his mother's ashes. He placed it right in the center of their living room like a sacred trophy. Every day, he sat in front of it, prayed, sometimes even cried. Makena stayed silent, even though it made her uncomfortable in her own home. She tried to accept it, to be understanding, but it felt like Mama Halima was still living with them, watching, judging, controlling. The love in their marriage was real, but there was a shadow over it, one Makena couldn't escape, and deep down, something inside her started to break. She never imagined ashes could come between them, but they had, and soon, that silent pain would grow into something much darker. Every morning, Adisa stood in front of the urn, lit a candle, whispered to it, like his mother could still hear him, sometimes even crying. Makena watched from a distance, pretending it didn't bother her, but inside, it did. She couldn't understand why a woman who barely knew her still held such power over their home. One day, she finally said it, almost in a whisper. She didn't even like me. Adisa brushed it off, saying his mother was just traditional, that she only wanted the best for him. But Makena felt erased. Every time they argued, Adisa ended the fight by throwing in his mother's name. Mama warned me about this. It was like Makena was in a battle with someone who was already gone. The worst part came one afternoon. She overheard Adisa talking to his sister, Zuena. Mama never trusted Makena. She thought she'd ruin me. Makena stood frozen, her heart pounding, her face burning. In that moment, the pain became something else, something colder. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just walked away. But inside, something shifted. The respect, the patience, the silence started to fade. And once that crack opened, nothing could close it. 2 years had passed since Mama Halima died, but for Adisa, it felt like she had just left. Makena tried to bring some light back into their lives, suggested a weekend away, just the two of them. But Adisa refused. "It's Mama's birthday," he said. "I need to be here." That night, as he slept, Makena stood alone in the quiet living room, staring at the urn. All she could think of were the cold looks, the harsh words, and how even in death, Mama Halima still had a seat in their home. Her fingers shook as she opened the cabinet. Slowly, she picked up the urn. It was heavier than she thought. She didn't know what she planned to do, only that it couldn't sit there anymore. By morning, the urn was gone. Adisa panicked. He tore through the house, questioned the maid, even reported it stolen to the police. Makena stayed calm, maybe too calm. She gasped in all the right places, held him while he cried, even helped him search. But deep down, she knew exactly where it was, and for the first time, she felt powerful, not loved, not healed, but in control, and she wasn't ready to let that go. Makena hid the urn deep in the storage closet, high behind old gift boxes no one touched. Every time Adisa ignored her feelings or compared her to his mother, she'd walk past that closet and feel a strange sense of power. She didn't shout, didn't fight. She just remembered that the one thing he loved more than anything was in her hands. But at night, the guilt didn't let her rest. She started having dreams. Mama Halima crying, not angry, just sad, reaching out like she was asking for something. Makena would wake up gasping, sweating, her heart racing. When her best friend Wanjiru came over, Makena finally told her the truth. "I took the urn." Wanjiru's eyes widened. "You did what? Girl? That's spiritual warfare." Makena laughed it off, tried to joke, but inside, her chest felt tight. She carried the secret like a trophy and a curse. It gave her control, but it also made her feel like a stranger in her own skin. She thought it would make her stronger, but now she wasn't sure. Every time she passed that closet, she didn't feel proud anymore, just scared, because one day, the truth would come out, and she didn't know what it would destroy. Adisa started falling apart. He couldn't think straight. He installed cameras around the house, asked the gardener strange questions, even accused his own sister of stealing the urn. He stopped going to work, barely ate, barely spoke. The house grew quiet, heavy with grief and tension. Makena sat beside him, held his hand, cried with him, but it was all a lie. She already knew where the urn was. She just didn't know how to fix what she'd broken. One night, she walked into the living room and saw him sitting on the floor, whispering to a photo of his mother. "I failed you. I couldn't even protect your memory." He laid down beside the empty mantle, like he was waiting for a ghost to return. Makina stood frozen, her heart tearing. She wanted to run upstairs, grab the urn, give it back, say sorry, but fear kept her still. What if he hated her? What if he left? She had taken something sacred, and now, every moment she didn't return, it made it worse. She crossed a line she couldn't uncross, and even though the secret gave her power once, now it only brought silence, regret, and a slow, painful distance she didn't know how to close. Makina's pain didn't start with Mama Halima. It started long before. As a child, she was raised by a mother who tore her down with every word. Nothing she did was ever enough. She was too loud, too quiet, too soft, too stubborn. Her mother called it discipline, but it left scars Makina never talked about. So when Mama Halima looked at her with the same eyes, judging, cold, never satisfied, it opened old wounds. It wasn't just jealousy. It was trauma repeating itself. Adisa didn't understand. When Makina tried to speak up, he brushed it off. "You're just overthinking. Mama didn't mean it that way." But Makina had learned to survive by staying silent. She swallowed her hurt and put on a smile. Until one day, she couldn't anymore. Taking the urn wasn't revenge. It was control. A desperate way to feel like she mattered, like she wasn't invisible. But at night, when the house was quiet, she'd look at the urn and whisper, "Why couldn't you just love me too?" She didn't want power. She just wanted peace. To feel chosen. To be enough for once, without having to compete with a memory that never saw her worth. Zuena showed up one morning, unannounced, holding a folded piece of old paper. Her eyes were soft, her voice calm. "I found this in Mama's Bible," she said. "It's for you." Makina froze. Her fingers shook as she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. "I judged you too quickly," it began. "In my final days, I saw your heart. My son chose wisely. If you're reading this, I didn't get to say it, but thank you for loving him. I was wrong about you." Makina couldn't breathe. Her eyes filled with tears. Her knees gave way, and she sat on the floor, clutching the letter to her chest. This woman, who had haunted her even in death, had actually seen her, too late. But still, the words echoed in her mind like a prayer she never expected. Without a word, Makina rushed upstairs. She opened the closet, pulled out the urn, and held it tightly. It wasn't just ashes anymore. It was everything she had buried inside herself. Hurt, pride, fear. The guilt hit her like a wave. She had hidden more than the urn. She had hidden her heart. And now, all she could think was, "What have I done?" Makina stood in front of the mantle, holding the urn in both hands. Her heart pounded, but she placed it gently back in its spot. Then she walked away in silence. Hours later, Adisa walked in. He stopped cold when he saw it. His eyes locked on the urn, then darted to her. "Makina," his voice cracked. "You found it? Where was it?" She looked down. Her throat tightened. "I didn't find it. I took it." Silence filled the room, thick and sharp. His face twisted. "You stole my mother's ashes?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I was lost. I felt invisible, like she was still here judging me. And you, always choosing her over me." Adisa's jaw clenched. His hands trembled. He backed away like she was a stranger. "You don't understand what you've done." He grabbed his keys and walked out. That night, he didn't come back. Makina curled up beside the mantle, clutching the urn to her chest. Her tears soaked her dress as she whispered over and over, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But the house stayed quiet and empty. Makina waited in silence as days dragged by. No texts, no calls, just emptiness. Every sound in the house echoed too loud. She wrote him a letter, not to defend herself, but to tell the truth, about the pain, about her fear, about how she felt like she was always fighting a ghost. At the end, she included Mama Halima's letter, the one that said, "I was wrong about you." Zuena called a few days later. Her voice was calm, but firm. "You broke something in him, but Mama forgave you. That has to mean something." Makina didn't hold hope. But one morning, Adisa walked in. His shoulders slumped, eyes tired. He didn't speak right away, just sat across from her, quiet, still. "I read your letter," he said finally. "I cried." Makina's hand moved toward his. He flinched, then let it rest in hers. "I don't know if I can forget," he whispered, "but I don't want to hate you." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded, afraid to speak. In the silence, something small and fragile began to grow. Not quite forgiveness, but maybe a chance. They began counseling, slowly pulling apart the pain that had lived in silence for too long. Adisa kept his distance at first. He didn't smile much. He spoke little. McKenna didn't push. She listened, answered truthfully, and showed up, session after session. She admitted her wrongs. Adisa admitted his blind spots. They talked about childhood wounds, the pressure to be perfect, and the grief they never shared. McKenna started placing fresh flowers beside the urn every week, not for forgiveness, but as a gesture of peace. She no longer feared the shadow of Mama Halima. She honored it, quietly. One evening, after a long session, they sat by the mantel in silence. McKenna lit a small candle. Adisa watched the flame, then said softly, "Mama would have liked this. Us. Trying." McKenna didn't answer. She just reached for his hand. This time, he didn't pull away. The pain hadn't disappeared. The memory still echoed, but it no longer controlled them. They had faced the truth, and in doing so, found a new beginning. A slow, fragile beginning, but real. Because sometimes love doesn't come easy. Sometimes it must be rebuilt from ashes.